Alongside Brent Hubbs, I'm Austin Price. 2-minute drill from here at SEC Media Days in Nashville. It is full speed ahead towards fall camp for Josh Heupel and his players. Of course, they were going to be asked about the NCAA ruling, but those guys are really not talking about that a whole lot. They're ready to move on and talk about, playing Virginia and playing Florida and playing Alabama and Georgia.
Yeah,
towards the fall camp and the season.
Yeah, no doubt. And they're going to practice in less than 2 weeks. So, for them, it's this almost feels like it's late, right?
Sure.
It feels like it's right up against the start of practice, and they're ready to go. They've had a good summer. Joe Milton's excited about the opportunity for it to be his offense. Jacob Warren had nothing but great things to say about the growth and maturity of Joe Milton over the course of the last year and a half. And they have an expectation, and I think that's the biggest difference. Every team comes here hopeful, talking about they're going to win this. This team's got a belief that they're good enough to win the East. They know that it's not a given. They're not predicting it or guaranteeing it, but they have a true belief that they could win the Eastern Division.
Joe Milton, asked ad nauseum today about throwing objects. I get tired of that. I think he gets tired of that, but he plays along. He is a much more reserved kid than he was maybe a year ago. Still got that kind of confident cockiness to him to a degree, like when someone said maybe the strongest arm, and he goes, no, maybe. But at the same time, talked about how early in his career he got complacent, and now he's focused more on about comfort, and being comfortable over being complacent. So he's comfortable with where he's at, but he's not complacent enough to know he doesn't have room to grow.
Yeah, I think for the longest time he thought he could probably rely on that arm, and the arm was just going to do all the work for him, and that's not the case. I thought the other telling quote from Joe Milton today that I heard was asking what the biggest difference was, and he said it's moving on to the next play. That early on he had a really hard time, and it's magnified in this offense, of letting the previous play affect the next play and not clearing his head. And he said that's something that he's really worked hard on. It showed up last year in that he moved on to the next play, because by moving on it allows him to process faster and make quicker decisions. Something he didn't do early in his career at Michigan, and something he didn't do early in the Josh Heupel tenure that first year here before he got hurt.
There were things that Hendon Hooker didn't do, and then they started using that basketball and how he played on the basketball court to kind of get him to come out of his shell. Maybe that's this version for Joe. Maybe it's just about not hanging your head or getting too high, being more steady Eddie. If you throw a 70-yard touchdown, fine, on to the next series. You go 3 and out, fine, on to the next series. Don't be too high or too low. And I talked about that when I was doing one of my hits down here on Radio Row, is how can Tennessee and Joey Halsley, Josh Heupel get the lows to be not that low for Joe?
Yeah, and it's about pushing the right buttons. It's about Joe's maturity and Joe's understanding. Joe's not looking over his shoulder. That's no offense to Nico. He respects Nico.
Sure.
And he knows he's got to go to work every day. But Joe knows it's in front of him. It's the opportunity is there. He's waited for this. Yeah. It's for him to go run with that opportunity, and we'll see if he can do that. On the other side of the ball, in talking to Omari Thomas, they've heard plenty about not being able to get to the quarterback, and that is something that has been stuck in their crawl and something that they've worked on and tried to improve on all summer long. Does it translate this fall? We'll find out. But it's very clear that they have heard they can't get to the quarterback without bringing everybody, and that's something they've taken to heart.
Everything Josh Heupel said, that's all up at Volquest.com. All the videos, all the interviews with Joe, Omari, Jacob Warren, and of course Josh Heupel, that's all up at Volquest. Complete coverage from SEC Media Days. Of course, Tennessee feeling that good vibe on the recruiting trail. That being with Mike Matthews, 5-star wide receiver, picking Tennessee on Wednesday night. Of course, tomorrow, Edmund Spillman will pick between Tennessee and Ohio State. He's Brent Hubbs. I'm Austin Price from the 2-Minute Drill.